Hi, I'm Dr. Bertice Berry, and I need to tell you a story. When I was studying for my doctoral degree in sociology at Kent State University from some of the best sociologists in the world, I had to take my comprehensive exams. Now, comprehensive exams are either take home for 5 days where you can use whatever materials you have, or in house for 3 days where you only get to use what's here. No notes. I did in house for 3 days, and each of my answers was about somewhere on average 28 pages long. You had to cover whatever the question was, you had to cover from the beginning of that knowledge to current time, to the time of when you were taking it. You had to prove competency in that area. When I first heard the term cultural competency, I thought, well, what? How they doing that? How do you become competent in any culture, like even your own, from the beginning of whenever to now? Competency can also mean knowing enough of the history and the application thereof of a subject to begin studying it. Some programs you take competencies to begin your study. In Deacon School here in Georgia, you study, and we have many competencies, and then you can take an internship once you are knowledgeable of the why. Cultural competency has no exam, has no anyone. If you grow up in a society as the so-called subdominant member of society, you tend to know the dominant culture really well. In fact, you begin to see your own culture through that culture. Du Bois talked about it with the double consciousness. You not only see yourself as you see yourself the way the dominant culture sees you, because that is the culture, the lens, the cultural lens through which all things are seen. So subdominant people tend to know the culture of the dominant group because it's in the media. It's the psyche of it is in the media. It's in all forms of media. It's in micro, macro media. It's everywhere. Dominant members of society don't tend to know much about the subdominant members of that society. And there used to be a belief like you didn't need to, because you didn't need to. Things were run a certain way, they were depicted a certain way. I mean, Jesus was painted white, so you didn't really need to. Now, as we're getting closer in 2023 to one another, there is a desire to know, a desire to know from one side to the other, to really learn and understand. But no one is bothered to really outline tools. And one of the reasons is a lot of the DE&I information is coming from business, where you don't do research. It's coming from people with business degrees but don't have degrees in human behavior or culture or anthropology. It's coming from business. And so there's really not a great in-depth understanding of a culture before people are saying, now go out there and have the hard conversations. What's hard? We're all human. I mean, if I had to talk to an orangutan who could kill me, that would be a hard conversation, or the difficult conversations, they say. Anyway, culturally, the so-called dominant group really doesn't get a peek into the nuances of so-called subdominant groups. You don't get a peek into them unless you spend like a great deal of time within that group as a subdominant member. You can't be the majority looking in. You look in as the minority or subdominant, because minority is confused term. It means numbers, but subdominant member. If you're looking in, when white people submerge themselves in, I don't know, say, a Puerto Rican community, and there's that one person, and everybody else is Puerto Rican in that community, and actually not even from Puerto Rico, but from New York and Puerto Rican, you pick up on some nuances and things, and you're like, oh, I had no idea. And it's all very, very subtle, but not to the people in that culture at all. When I grew up in an all black environment in a Pentecostal church. When I went to college, Jacksonville University, predominantly white, 35 black people on campus, I had to watch. I had to, even though the dominant culture was there were sub things because of age, because of wealth, because one of the groups we know less about are the wealthy. I had to watch. I had to pay attention. And once you start to see and get it, you go, oh, okay. But you don't say anything, you just watch. And you're grateful for the entree. You're grateful for being in that space because you get to watch and learn. I've noticed that when subdominant members get to look into, when dominant members of the so-called dominant culture get to look in the so-called subdominant culture, they don't watch with grace or humility. They watch with the same eyes. They watch with judgment from what they see and what they do. Cultural humility over cultural competency. Now, I know some people say you should know both. When you going to do that? Start with humility. Start with cultural humility to say, I'm seeing something I don't even understand, and it's interesting, so let me watch. I said a whole lot, and it took a long time to do it. I hope it's helpful. I love you.